It is sometimes said that we are born as strangers into the world and that we leave when we die. But in all probability, we do not come into the world at all. Rather, we come out of it, in the same way a leaf comes out of a tree or a baby from its mother's body. We emerge from deep within its range of possibilities. And when we die, we do not so much stop living as our living takes a different form. So the leaf does not fall out of the world when it leaves the tree. It has a different way and place to be within it. In this spirit, let us worship.
Welcome to the Unitarian Church of Baton Rouge, however we are as virtual as we are. Happy Halloween. We decorated for you. If you're a visitor, we're glad that you're here. You can email to find out more about the church and get on the email list. Membership@unitarianchurchbr.com. We're going to see if Kathy, our Director of Family Ministry, can get that typed into the YouTube. This is a test to see how fast her fingers are. But if you're a visitor, we're glad you're here. One of the things you should know, so I'm Nathan Ryan, I'm the Associate Minister. We have Lee Hartman doing all of the music stuff along with Trey Davis. Mike Padden's up, making sure sound works. And Eric Poza is at home drinking coffee because we're trying to swap off who's doing it. And I also presume our intern, Leslie Runnels, is home drinking coffee too. Or tea, I don't know. Anyway, glad that you're here. You should know the staff has been trying to take a week off, one per person, to get some relief from this pandemic workload. So this week is Allison. So if you don't hear from Allison, that is why. Give her a week just to be by herself. Also, this Friday at 7 on Zoom, you can find out on the website or the email, we're having our church costume contest. So get your costume ready. Friday, 7 on Zoom. We're going to have two announcements. The first is from the COVID safety team, and then we've invited Genevieve Silverman, a long-term member of this church, who is going to provide her testimonial about pledging. Glad you're with us today.
Good morning, everyone. This is Heather Yonke from the church's COVID safety team. I want to shout out a great big thank you to everybody that came out and helped us build the outdoor worship pods. Now, you might be asking, now that the pods are built, when do we get to use them? Well, the COVID safety team still has a little bit more work to do. We're putting together the guidelines and the procedures to be able to use them as safely as possible. The UUA has just released some additional guidelines that we will be incorporating into our procedures. And if you want to follow along with us, there's a metric that we're going to be using. It's put out by the organization called COVID Act Now. So if you go to the website covidactnow.org, you will be able to zoom in. You can click the parish. We're going to be following East Baton Rouge Parish. And if you look at it, it's a very simple metric with a color scale. And as long as East Baton Rouge Parish is in green or yellow, it will be safe for us to get together and meet outdoors. So that will be the metric that we're following. And for those of you who are not comfortable even in any type of outdoor gathering, please don't be worried, because we will still continue to have the online worship service. Please stay tuned. We'll have more updates as we get closer and have additional guidelines ready to go. Thank you.
Today we have a stone for the death of a member of this church, Bill Haywood. His uncle, Noel Hammett, died last week. This is the time when normally I would ask you to come forward, take a stone and place it in the chalice bowl. I'll place stones for you as you type into the chat whatever's on your heart, whatever's on your mind, whatever you would be thinking as you placed a stone. And we say together, with hope to make this a better world, we light this flame. Its light is a symbol of the power of love. This is the last Sunday before Halloween, so today we're going to have a scary service, except we aren't really, because, let's be honest, things are too scary already. So I wasn't sure I was going to do this, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to do something that is a little bit of a description of a metaphor of what I'm talking about. So, they say dead air is bad on radio and TV, but this is worship, so get ready for some dead air. I'll be right back. There we are. Scary, right? It's a scary mask I'm wearing. But here's what's interesting about this. This is for fun. This is the mask we're wearing all the time that is actually scary. Or, that is to say, the mask reminds us of what is scary in the world. So what we're going to do today is not talk about the scary mask, or not talk about the mask that is protecting us from what is actually scary, but talking about the fun overlay scary mask. And isn't that what Halloween is? There are the things that we're all scared of. And in a normal year, I talk about it being the fear of the unknown, the fear of death and suffering and all of that. Then I talk about how Halloween is the time we get to play with those fears so that when we actually have to face them, we have practice with it. But this year, between the stupid pandemic, the actual fear of death and sickness, and an unknown thing that is floating in the air, keeping us from seeing our family and friends and living our normal life. And with this being so close to an election, and with a current administration deciding to take thousands of children away from their parents for the misdemeanor crime of of crossing a border illegally, and some seeking asylum, which is not a crime. And that administration's intentional, it's not mismanagement because they did what exactly they planned to do.
created more than 500 orphans. 300 of those children they've lost in the system. Maybe I'm sensitive to this because I have kids the same age, and I cannot think of a crime in this country where the punishment is permanent separation from your family. So there's that. There are 6, I think, hurricanes that almost, or maybe did, hit Baton Rouge and certainly hit the towns of many of the people in this church or their family and friends. Frankly, this year, I think the world is scary enough, and we don't need to provoke the fears that all of us are living with. But I also don't buy into that austere, we should never celebrate, Halloween is evil ideology. This year, I noticed people putting up Halloween decorations very early, and they made the decorations much more elaborate than I'd ever seen. I'm talking like Labor Day early. Whenever you're dealing with trauma, and I know you're probably sick of hearing us say that we're going through trauma, but we are. And so whenever you go through trauma, especially this extended, weird, kind of invisible, except when it isn't trauma, you need something physical to do, something distracting. Acknowledging and playing with the scary stuff is part of what we should be doing. Drive around and look at how many skeletons you see doing weird, funny things in people's yards. 5 years ago, there weren't those. There was a few, but not like this. And I want this to be a church that plays with things that frighten us, to help us give us the spiritual tools to make it through. So today I've asked the rest of the worship staff to tell us scary stories. I told them that because things are so scary right now, don't make them scary. I told them this on like Tuesday. So good for them for all coming up with a scary story as soon as they did. My scary story is going to be about money. It's not actually scary, but we have to play with it, so we're going to. This is a hard time for us, for people. Halloween is the first of the 4 major holidays that are going to remind us of how much we've lost. Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Mardi Gras are all going to be different. And every part of those holidays that are different will poke at the re-traumatization we're going through. So we'll get through this together.
Would you join me in a moment of prayer and reflection? The God that we know when we see love and kindness and justice, be with us on this day. And hold the hearts of all those who are afraid right now, all those who are angry and have had their justice taken away from them. Please work on the hearts of all those who are casting ballots right now, and especially on all those who've been elected to represent us. May they always put justice, compassion, kindness ahead of partisan divisions, vindictiveness, or violence. May this church be the church that converts this fear and this anger into acts of justice and becomes beacons of hope for all who need it. May grieving hearts be healed. May our fears be met with comfort and community. Amen.
Flowing by the throne of God. by the throne of God. Ere we reach the shining river, lay we every burden down. Grace our spirits will deliver and provide a robe and a crown. Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. Soon we'll reach the shining river. Soon our pilgrimage will cease. Soon our happy hearts will quiver with the melody of peace. Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God.
I had been so excited to start kindergarten when I was 5 years old. And I really did have a great time there in almost every way. It was cool to be around all the other kids and to learn all the stuff that we were learning about in kindergarten, to realize that I already knew some things. I'd been lucky to learn how to read when I was kind of young, so I already knew how, and that seemed to impress some of the other kids, which made me feel good. But there was one thing. There was one really scary part of kindergarten, and that was the principal of my elementary school, Mr. Delaney. And he was the meanest man. Everybody knew it, too. All the other kids who'd had older brothers or sisters that had already been in school were all warning me, oh, I hope you never get in trouble from Mr. Delaney. That's awful when that happens, because he's always so mean to the kids. And when I did see him around the school, he was always frowning, and he had this really deep, low voice. He always sounded mad when he would talk to anybody. And I was so terrified. I didn't like getting in trouble anyway, but I was especially scared that if I ever did anything wrong, that Mr. Delaney would come after me. Now, it's good to behave, but I took it a little too far because I was so scared that something bad would happen to me and that I'd have to deal with this really mean man if I did get in trouble. So I went out of my way to be as good as I could and made sure I never talked back or talked in class or never misbehaved, never disobeyed the teacher. I didn't do any of those things, even when I kind of wanted to. And it was nice to a fault so that I could stay out of trouble. And then one day, I got called out into the hall outside the class. Uh-oh. That's what happened in my school, in my kindergarten, when a kid was getting in trouble. And I didn't know what I'd done wrong. But it's not just that I was getting called into the hallway. I was told that Mr. Delaney wanted to talk to me. I think I was literally shaking as I stood up and I slowly walked out because somebody told me to, and I didn't want to misbehave or disobey, but I didn't know what was about to happen to me. I was sure it was going to be awful. And I walked out of the door, and Mr. Delaney was standing just the other side of the door. and he had a big smile on his face. And he said in the friendliest way possible, "Eric, I heard that you might have been a little bit scared to talk to me, so I just wanted to make sure that you knew that it was okay. And I'm glad to talk to kids." And he's kept smiling the whole time. I was confused. I didn't understand what was going on. But I said, "Okay, thank you." And we talked a minute more. I don't remember everything we said, but I went back in the room, and I didn't totally understand then what was going on. I found out later that my kindergarten teacher had heard that I was scared of Mr. Delaney and had let him know. And he went out of his way to let me know that I didn't have to be scared of him. Looking back now, I would say that Mr. Delaney was a gruff man, but gruff is not the same as scary. I didn't understand that, though, when I was 5 years old. But as I got older, as I went through elementary school, Mr. Delaney actually was very supportive of me. He found out I was good at math, and so he really pushed me, encouraging, sometimes a little gruff, but still encouraging me to learn more about math and to try to get even better at it. And I'm so glad now that I was able to get over originally being scared of this person who went on to be such a help to me as I was growing up.
Hi, I'm Nathan Ryan. I'm the associate minister at the church in Baton Rouge. I don't know how many of you received these emails. I think most Unitarian Universalists have received them, or at least leaders. It was actually even an article in the UU World about it, but I bet a lot of you have. So here's the scam. A person pretends to be one of the ministers, maybe the president of the church, creates a Gmail address that's something like minister121113@gmail.com, but changes the title to be my actual name or the senior's actual name or the president's actual name, then sends emails to church leaders, and we think they're finding them through newsletters put on the website, but we don't know that. But they seem to find emails of leaders, and they send an email saying, "Hi, this is your minister or your president. I need some help, but I'm going into a meeting. Do not call me. Just email back, this is an emergency or this is something," and they wait until you respond, and then they go back and forth. Eventually, they ask you for gift cards. And while for the most part, where I serve has been lucky, this person is quite convincing and has stolen quite a bit of money from a few members where I serve. Recently, I saw a colleague of mine in Raleigh, how she's been responding to the scammer. And so I reached out to her and I said, could we act this out for the sake of dumb pandemic fun, but also kind of as a PSA? And so anyway, she's brilliant, and I thought we should reenact it. Now, I do not necessarily recommend responding in the way that she did. The best bet is to simply report the person. There's actually a feature where you can report exactly what the email is to Google, because this person is breaking the law, and may even call the police if you want to. Also, leaders and staff in the church are never going to ask you for gift cards, period. We're not. I love the church I serve, and I love that it is so trusting of the clergy and so generous that there were footholds for the scammer to find. So I hope you will take this PSA reenactment in stride. We're trying to deflate the power this person has. So here's the problem. So Sasha is going to act like herself. I'm going to act like the scammer, acting like me. So I was trying to figure out how to do it. So I'm going to dress up as a bad version of me. So I got this terrible wig. Right? Got some glasses, because I don't wear glasses yet. Oh, and now you can see the computer. This is good. And I've got this weird hat for some reason. So this is Scammer Nathan. Got it? Good. Here we go. Type. Blessings. It is Reverend Nathan Ryan, your minister. How are you doing? I need assistance from you. Email me as soon as you get this message.
Hello, Reverend Nathan. I'm always happy to do an assistance for you. What do you need?
Glad to hear from you. I am in a meeting right now. That is why I'm contacting you through email. I should have called instead of mailing you, but phones are not allowed to be used during meetings, and I can't pick calls up right now. I just need to get eBay gift cards today for some women going through cancer at the hospital, but I can't do it right now because of my busy schedule. Can you go to, I don't know, get it from any store? I will pay you back later in cash or check. Let me know if you can get it. The card is for patients. Blessings.
Sure, always happy to do the Lord's work, but not with eBay. They are the devil incarnate. So how about a much better, God-fearing vendor?
You could get Amazon.
Amazon is basically Satan's minion. So how about gift baskets?
No.
Are you sure? I'm just down the street from Gifts of the Holy Spirit. They have some wonderful gifts, some great Christian gifts.
I want you to get me any gift cards to give to cancer patients.
Great! I'm sure the Christian gift store has gift cards in the baskets. I will send you photos.
Okay, let me know when you get the gift cards.
All right, I am at the store right now. Lots of great godly gift baskets with gift cards. I will snap you some photos of the very best ones that you can choose.
Okay, thanks.
Oh my gosh, here's the first one. See the red gift card there? $10 value for purchases on the I Can Do All Things Through Christ web store. The shopkeeper, Miss Charity Hope Faith, isn't her name sweet, says I can upgrade the card to $20 and get a free Christ Take the Wheel steering wheel cover. Score!
I'm talking about gift cards.
Meh, there are gift cards in the basket. All right, how about these? Now, I don't personally like the plastic, but Dear Charity Hope Faith says that it is to help protect those $75 Impact gift cards from theft. Theft? Who would steal from a Christian gift shop? Can you even imagine? Anyway, though, this one doesn't come with the free steering wheel cover, sadly, so I'm leaning toward the first one, even though this one has a better gift card.
Just get me a gift card of $500 and tell me how you want me to pay you back in check or cash.
Alas, they don't have single gift cards for $500. But I can get a whole bunch that add up to $500. Do we want $500 for all 7 recipients to share, or $500 for each patient for a total of $3,500?
$500 for the 7 cancer patients.
Now, Pastor, you are always preaching that God calls us to be generous of spirit and generous of checkbook. Are you sure? only $500? Because I am happy to do $500 for each patient for a total of $3,500.
Yes, only 500.
All right, well, in that case, it is time to make a final decision on which baskets and included gift cards to buy. And I am home now with just the notes that I wrote on my phone, but I can drive back when we will make our final choice. So, option 1 is the I Can Do All Things in Christ basket that I showed you before, with the matching $20 gift card for the online store and the free Christ Take the Wheel steering wheel cover. If I buy 25 baskets, that will get us $500 worth of gift cards. Then there's option 2, which is the ugly basket that I showed you before, with the $75 card to the Impact Christian Bookstore. But we'll have to go over your budget just a little bit to get that one for each of the 7 patients, since it will cost like a little extra, $525 total instead of $500, just $525. And also, it doesn't come with the steering wheel cover. And then there's option 3, a God is My Anchor basket that I found, with a $35 gift card for Flowering Souls clothing store. If I buy 14 baskets for that one, that will get us $490 worth of cards. And this basket also doesn't come with that free steering wheel cover. So my personal preference is option 1 or option 3 if you don't like option 1. Obviously, that's a lot of baskets for 7 patients, but I am thinking that we can get all of the cards and 7 of the baskets to the 7 patients and then store the remaining baskets in the supply room for the church auction, or perhaps another, family in need will need them later. What do you want me to buy?
You can go for option 2 of 75 to make it 500.
Will do. Onward, Christian soldiers, back to the store. Victory in Christ. I am now in possession of our 7 beautiful Impact Christian Bookstore baskets, each with their own $75 gift card to the Impact website. Do you want me to drop them off with each of the patients? Unless, of course, the names are confidential, but I am not a gossip. Proverbs chapter 20, verse 19, after all, whoever goes about slandering reveals secrets. Therefore, do not associate with a simple babbler. And as a pleasant aside, guess what Charity Hope Faith told me? Impact Christian Bookstore sells steering wheel covers. Hallelujah!
Okay, good. Now, scratch the gift cards and send them to me right here on this email.
So, would you mind terribly if I actually keep the gift cards for myself and just give the patients the baskets and the other stuff? I'm really, really sad we didn't go with option 1 to get the free steering wheel cover, but I realize I can buy a ton of Christ Take the Wheel steering wheel covers for $500 at Impact with the gift cards.
Send me the gift cards, and I will pay you cash.
Here you go. You mad? I'm only keeping the gift cards. You can still have the baskets for the patients. You'll be fine, I promise.
All right, so it's Halloween, and I thought we should talk about something a lot of people find scary, especially for a church to talk about: money. No, don't leave. I had to move the camera, but I was pretending it was you walking away. Don't leave. This is going to be good, I promise. I even promise if you make it through to the end of this part, I will show you a video of a rabbit wearing glasses reading a book. Can you stick with me? Good. It is pledging season. And I'll tell you why I'm jealous, and then I'll break down the numbers, and then I'll give you that rabbit video. A church should help you have a good and spiritually healthy relationship with every part of your life. This church is great about figuring out how to do that in terms of race and sexual identity and the environment and sexuality and we do a lot of that good stuff, but we really dodge the money thing. So a healthy church helps you have a healthy relationship with all aspects of your life, and that is what we are trying to do. So first things first, pledging is a spiritual practice. This is not a payment for services rendered. The spiritual practice is to say that if you have every member of a church pledge what they can, what they are able to do, what is right, then we will have enough money to do the ministry this church needs. That means that those who are able to give more, and those who can't, don't. And when you are going through tough times financially, you don't give as much, and others give more to cover for you. And when you are going through flush times, you give enough to cover for others. I also don't like the term cover because I really think we're all giving what we're able to give if a pledge drive is done right. But the point is that together we even out all of the rough edges. To say that another way, when you are not pledging to pay for the things you like. This is not about evaluating the cost of this service or of a hymn or the building, even though no one can be in it, or the staff. This is us asking you to prioritize giving to your church home so that we can continue to do the ministry and outreach and inreach and advocacy that you and this world desperately need. Here's the problem with this year's pledge drive. First, I started in March and took me like 4 months, but I called just about every single one of you, or I at least tried. And I know that this church is okay in terms of its members being not being too financially hit by the pandemic. That is not to say that everyone got away unscathed, but not as many have lost income as I feared they would. However, because of us being online and not able to gather in person, I have no clue how many of you are actively engaged. I know the view count on the YouTube is around 100 a service, but I don't know if that varies or it's the same or whatever. So, I don't know if there's like 500 people watching or 100. So this year we are counting on you more than ever. There is no part of me that worries about the long-term stability of this church. It is a healthy, smart, mature congregation. When this stupid pandemic is over, we will definitely be able to gather together again in person, and we will be vibrant. So I'm not worried long-term. The question I have is if you, the member or visitor who is watching this, are engaged enough and able enough to fund through the pandemic. So I'm also a little jealous. I was watching the service of another Unitarian Universalist church who just wrapped up their pledge drive. They not only met their budget goal, but they exceeded it. And now they're done. This church has a habit of letting this drive drag into December and January. So please ask your church friends, ask your branches members. If you've ask them if they've pledged. Have you pledged? Let's get this wrapped up early so we can focus on whatever this bizarre Thanksgiving and Christmas is going to be. All right, so here's the breakdown. This is the information that many of you have been asking for, and so I'm going to try and explain it as simply as I can. I'm hesitant to give this to you because remember, pledge drive is not a payment for services rendered. It is a spiritual practice. I'm also going to round the numbers and simplify when I can. For the sake of this exercise, the pledge income in this church is $500,000. The budget is larger and we need more income to get there, but let's just keep it at an even $500,000 for now. According to Michael Durrell, the proper pledging distribution is as follows. You should split the church into 4 quadrants. The budget into 4 quadrants. For us, each quadrant should be $125,000, so that's a quarter of the $500,000. In a healthy distribution in church, 10% should pay for the first $125,000. That's probably because 10% of you have substantial wealth and ability. The second $125,000 by the next 15%. So half of the budget is paid for by a quarter of the church. The third quadrant is paid for by 25% of the church. So that next $125,000 is 25% of you. And then the last quadrant is the last half of the church. So 50% of the people pay for the last 25% of the budget. I understand that there's a lot of shame and guilt around money. So let me say this again. It's not about what you should give. If everyone gave what they can, we would be flush with cash and be able to do whatever it is the church wanted, good works and more. So I took our budget and I split it into those quadrants, and then I took a list of the pledges from last year. I sorted them numerically and saw where we sit in this sort of ideal distribution. Also, there are between 200 and 250 pledging units. A family is a unit that pledges together. So one family may consist of 1, 2, or 3, or 4 members. Our membership has 358 pledging units. 200 to 250 pledged, 358 pledging units. Now, over and over, this congregation has been asked to change its bylaws to make pledging or payment a requirement for membership, and you have multiple times voted it down. Some Unitarian Universalist churches require a gift or a pledge to be a member. This church has said that's not something that we want. Also, there are a handful of members who have turned in $0 pledges, maybe because they felt like they could not give this year for whatever reason. Those are included in the people who made pledges, not included in the 150 units who did not pledge. So here's how it all breaks down. In the perfect distribution, we would have 21 people giving more than $5,000 a year. We currently have 16. We should have 31 of you pledging between $3,200 and $5,000. We currently have 22. We should have 52 of you giving between $1,800 and $3,200. We currently have 44. We should have 104 of you giving under $1,800. We currently have 133. Or if you include the 150 who didn't turn in a pledge last year, it is 283. And let me also say, we build the budget based off of the pledges. So giving money periodically throughout the year does not help us plan for staffing or building usage or programming. So it means that we can only make a budget. That means we can not only make budget if we did this, but if we actually had everyone in the proper distribution, we could make amazing things happen in this church during a pandemic that many thought would be impossible. I'm talking about getting the staff up to fair compensation, getting the tech and supplies we need to continue to do virtual church, along with whatever it will take to do worship and programming once we're back together again after this whole thing is over. So here's what we need. We need 5 more people to increase their pledge to over $5,000. We need 5 plus 9, so the original 5 moving up, plus 9, or 14 people to increase their pledge to over $3,200. Then we need 5 plus 9 plus 8, which is 23, to get their pledge over $1,800. And we need some of the 150 people who did not turn in a pledge or just to enter into one of those distributions. Really, if there's any way you can bump up to the next quadrant, please consider it. The first quadrant is just barely more than $385 a month or $14 a day. Second quadrant is $267 a month or $9 a day. The third quadrant is $150 a month or $5 a day. And the fourth quadrant, if all you do is $3 a day, we'd have more than enough to make this work. You made it. Good. Now, I promised you a video of a rabbit wearing glasses reading. I'm going to also give you some cute other animal videos. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to have a split screen. We're going to ask those of you who are ready to make your pledge right now to make it. I'm going to take 2 full minutes to show you how little time it'll take to make the pledge. So if you have already made your pledge, watch the animal videos. If you have not, get out whatever device you're not watching this on, or split screen your thing. You can go to the UnitarianBR.org website. You can email office@UnitarianChurchBR.com, or you can fill out your pledge card. 2 minutes. I bet you can do it. I'm going to do it right here, not live, it's recorded, but I'm going to do it right now. Let's make this happen. Best pledge drive in the history of this church in the worst year in the history of in a long time.
All right, y'all are good sports for putting up with that. Please give generously. Pledge drive's still going on for the ongoing work of this church. We've only got 3 more scary stories to tell you. They're short. I know we're going to go a little long today, but only like 5 minutes. So glad you're with us. Please give generously. This morning's offering is given and received.
have a scary story to tell you. Back when I was in my early 20s, a couple of my girlfriends and I went to Kenya so we could go on safari and see the animals. And we camped out along the way. And at one of the beautiful parks that we went to, we ran into the British Royal Navy, and it was a lot of fun. We cooked out together, we told stories together, just went on safari together. It was a lot of fun. And one night when we were going to bed, we got into the tent and settled in, and all of a sudden I heard like the zipper starting to open up, and I was like, no, I'm not hearing that. And then all of a sudden in came this big thing that came up and then landed at the foot of my sleeping bag. So I'm all scared, and I tell my friends, wake up, there's an anaconda in the tent, there's an anaconda in the tent. They're like, there's not an anaconda, there's an anaconda at the foot of my sleeping bag. And so they're like telling me, no, go back to sleep. I'm like, no, it's horrible. And so one of my friend sleeping next to me slid her foot over on top of my sleeping bag, and she's like, well, it does feel like maybe there's something there. At that point, I like booted out of my sleeping bag, because while I'm out there on safari and we're looking at elephants and lions and rhinoceroses and hippopotamuses and even giraffes that are so big and powerful, and I'm thinking I'm gonna get eaten every night in my tent. So I go into bed with kind of a low-level bit of terror. So they're like, no, it's no big deal. And I'm like, no, there's an anaconda in the tent. I'm like, give me the knife. And like, what do you want with the knife? Are you gonna kill it? I'm like, no, I'm not gonna kill it. I'm gonna cut away out of the back of the tent. We can run to safety. And my friend says, don't give her the knife. I'm like, ah. So at the back of the tent, I had a long pinky nail, and I'm like trying to saw my way out of the little netting of the window, right? So I can get out. And at that point, that's when we hear all this raucous laughter outside of the tent. And it turns out that the Royal British Navy had put a crocodile skull at the foot of my tent. So what turned out to be this really scary thing, where I was going to be eaten by an anaconda, turned out to be just a prank. But what I learned from this little adventure was how when you're in a kind of low-grade level of stress and anxiety or fear for a long time, then when something happens, it can trigger you into some kind of big responses. I noticed that I gave anacondas a lot of credit for being able to open up the tent, right? The zippers of the tent. I don't know if that's a feature anacondas have or not, but that's where my brain went, because I was in low-level state of anxiety all the time. And the other thing that I learned was that my friends who were with me, who weren't at that level of anxiety, were smart enough to know not to give me a knife that I would tear up our home that we were living in for the next couple of months. So having some steady people with you can be important. And I also learned, watch out for that Royal British Navy. They might be up to some tricks.
Evening breeze, spirit song, sing to me when the day is done. Morning breeze, sing to me with the heartbeat of the sea. Evening breeze, spirit song, sing to me when the day is done. Morning breeze, spirit song.
So I have a story for you this morning about something scary that happened to me. When I was a young parent, my children were 9, 7, and the baby was 3. We moved from Los Angeles, California to Columbia, Maryland. We moved over the summer, and the children and I took about a 2-month camping trip cross-country. When I told my friends in Los Angeles, many of them city people, that we were going to be camping for 2 months, they were concerned, worried about what might happen to a single woman and 3 young children on the road for such a long period of time. Well, about halfway through the trip, we were going through Texas down to Big Bend National Park, which is on the banks of the Rio Grande River. It's the middle of July. We were in the overflow camping down next to the river. There are big signs all around the campground telling you to be careful and to guard your belongings, because this is a part of the Rio Grande where people often cross from Mexico into the U.S. So it's dusk. The children and I had finished dinner and were cleaning up afterwards, and I noticed flashlights down next to the river. And I said to the kids, "Quick, let's get into the tent." Why I thought the tent was a better choice than the van, which could be locked, I don't know. But nonetheless, we got into the tent, and picture 3 little faces peeking through the zippered opening with an anxious mommy face at the top. And the flashlights went on and off and on and off. And after a few minutes, I realized that the flashlights weren't getting any closer. And after another minute or so, I realized my children and I, who had been born and raised in the West, had never seen fireflies. And what we were so scared of down next to the river was actually fireflies in the bushes next to the Rio Grande. So I take a couple of lessons away from that. One is, sometimes we're not afraid of the things we think we're afraid of. What we're afraid of is the stories we tell in our mind about what those things might be. The other thing is that oftentimes the things that we are afraid of are influenced by what other people or what the general culture has told us what those things might be. Like my friends in Los Angeles who were worried about me driving cross-country with children, or the signs around the campground that warned me to be careful of immigrants. Oftentimes, knowing what it is or learning what it is that you are afraid of can help you deal with it and help you realize that what you were afraid of was not something you had to be scared of at all.
I know things are scary, but let's be scared of both of these masks. See, I brought it back from the earlier. But let's not forget that there are actually 3 things going on here. First is this mask. No, stop putting it up there. This is the thing we make to be scary, but actually in reality poses no threat. These are all the things that the art, the music, that provoke and prod those things that we find are threatening. And while we should pay attention to the stories we tell about anacondas and principals and invaders, we should pay attention to whose mask we're putting on. Is it a fake mask, or is it actually the real person when we're telling stories? And then there are the masks that we wear that remind us of how fragile and scary the world is. But we must not mistake the thing that protects us from the thing they protect us from. Everyone in the world is scared right now. Everyone. Some of us cope by wearing the mask. Some of us cope by mixing up the mask with the threat. And our role as a religious community is to love people so much that they will realize it is safe to put on those masks and literally save their lives and ours. And while I'm talking about disease that I'm tired of talking about, I'm also talking about much more. I'm talking about people who've seen the violence and dangerous conditions this country can impose on those who have been placed on the margins. And as a way of coping with the fear of falling victim to the diseases of misogyny and racism and poverty, they try to throw out the protection because wearing the mask reminds them of what they fear. We must be a religion that makes it safe for people to do their work wrestling with God or the truth or the divine or whatever term works for you. We must be a religion that lets God do the work on people so they will find ways to wear their masks and to allow them to play with those other masks, to play with the things that scare them in a safe and spiritually healthy way. This world is hurting, now more than it has in a long time. So let's be the church that is built strong enough to help other people and to help ourselves. Go love the hell out of some people until we can stop being so sick.
Take courage, friends. The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone. Go in peace. Go in love. Amen.